I'm going to show you how to work a new fancy stitch combo. It's called Rickrack Rib. Say that 10 times fast. It is a rib stitch, so it's stretchy, and you can actually use this stitch as a substitute for things like the cuffs of sleeves or the cuffs of hats or the whole hat even. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at it. Here is a very bulky example of Rickrack Rib. It is stretchy, and it looks like rickrack going up like this. It also is flat. I didn't do anything special to make this piece flat. It actually works up like this. And the back of it looks like an interesting rib. I hadn't thought about it before, but this would actually make a fine scarf. The two sides of the scarf wouldn't match, but they would look just fine. That's a super bulky. This is a tighter gauge in a smaller yarn, and you can see it looks denser, but it's still very stretchy. I think this is my favorite combination for this stitch, so that you can't see through the stitches when it's not stretched, but it's still very stretchy. It would make a nice cuff, wouldn't it? And there's the back of it. This is interesting enough to be its own stitch. Okay, one more. Here it is in a very loose gauge. It's a worsted weight yarn on a size 10.5 needle, and you can actually see through the stitch before you stretch it. It's still pretty, don't get me wrong. Wow, that looks cool. The gray one's my favorite though, and here's the difference between the two of those. Okay, the instructions for working this stitch are all in the video description below, as well as on my website, and I'll give you a link right here. You want to cast on a multiple of 3 plus 1. I've cast on 10 stitches here to show you how to do it. And I've also already worked a wrong side row. There are only 2 rows in this pattern, and I worked a wrong side row because I want this side of my cast on to be the right side of my work. So I'm started with row 2, and now I'm going back to row 1. I'll demonstrate that for you now. So with row 1, the first thing you want to do is purl a stitch. And then this is where it gets interesting. We're going to skip the first stitch and knit through the back loop of the second stitch, which means you put your needle into the back of that stitch, wrap it and pull it through, and then don't pull anything off the left needle, because now we're going to go back and work the first stitch normally. And then pull both stitches off the needle. And then I'm going to purl one. And then that's the pattern repeat. I'm going to go back to the rickrack part. Skip the first stitch, knit through the back loop of this stitch, swing the tip of my right needle around to work the front of this stitch, the first stitch, pull both off, and then purl one. One more time. Skip the first stitch, go into the back loop of this stitch, then knit the first stitch normally, both stitches off, and then I'm going to end with a purl stitch. So that's a right side row worked. Now I'm going to turn the work and show you how to work the wrong side row, which is actually easier. I'm going to start by knitting one, and I'm going to skip the first stitch again and just purl normally into the second stitch. So I pull the yarn forward between my 2 needles to purl into the second stitch, but again, don't pull anything off the needle, and then just purl into the first stitch. Then I yarn back to knit one, yarn forward to skip the first stitch, purl into the second stitch, then purl into the first stitch, both those stitches off the needle, yarn back to knit one. And all these instructions, of course, are available on my website and in the video description below. Okay, that's the whole pattern. It's just those 2 rows over and over again. And you can start to see the pattern emerge here. It's more obvious once you get more rows going. Okay, I do want to show you one more thing with this, because knitting this in the round is a little bit different. I have a sample here. It still is a 2-row repeat. Row 1 is going to be exactly like row 1 when you're knitting it flat. That's no different. So I'm not going to demonstrate that. Let me flip my page so I make sure I get this right. I saw some examples of, not examples, I saw some instructions for how to work this stitch in the round online, and they didn't work. I had to invent this one myself. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to show you. Working it in the round is a slightly different look. This is apples for apples here, same size needle. You have a really distinct rickrack look in the flat piece. It's slightly different in the piece in the round. It's only because that's the nature of the stitch. When you're skipping a stitch and going back and always coming from the same direction as you're doing in the round, it's impossible to get it exactly like this, but it's pretty darn close. Okay, this is just round 2 in the round part of this, and the instructions are available to you. I purled one. I'm going to knit into the front of the second stitch on the left needle. This is different than we did before. So I'm going to go into the front of this stitch, wrap it and pull it through, and then go into the front of the first stitch. And then pull both stitches off the needle and purl one. I'll show you that one more time. Front of the second stitch, front of the first stitch, and off, and then purl one. Actually, I want to finish this needle, so I'll tell you what, going from those size 13 needles to these 10.5 is nice. Okay. Now I want to show you how to bind off, because that is a bit different. I have to turn my page again. Sorry about the paper sound. Okay. I'm going to work a normal row 1 as I bind this off. And it's really pretty easy to do. I just want to give you a visual for how the bind off looks best. This is for flat or in the round. It's the same thing. I'm going to start by absolutely just working the pattern repeat as I do this. So I purl 1, knit through the back loop of the second stitch on the needle, and you take a look, I have 2 stitches on the left needle. Anytime you have 2 stitches on the left needle, pull one over the other. So one is bound off. And now I'm going to knit the first stitch normally and pull both of those off. And I have 2 stitches on the left needle again, so I'll pull that off, or bind that off. Yarn forward to purl 1. I am absolutely doing the same pattern. Every time I have 2 stitches on the left needle, I bind one off. I'm going to knit into the back loop of the second stitch. 2 stitches are on the right needle, bind that off. Now I'm going to knit into the front of this, pull those 2 stitches off, bind one off. And this looks really good. It stays absolutely in pattern to the very end. If you just do a normal bind off or even a knit purl bind off, it will show. I tested it out. This is the way to go. Judging by the length of this fancy stitch combo, I'm thinking this is a pretty complicated stitch, but it's not. Just 2 rows. All the instructions are on my website. Good luck.